interrupt this program to bring you Courage, the Cowardly Dog Month.
Whole month of Courage, the Cowardly Dog. First appearing in 1996, it was picked up by Cartoon Network, who work in the middle of Burbank, and directed by cartoonist John Dilworth. Though many years have passed since the original air date, it's now time for Zack to celebrate this great show.
Well, old sport, what do you think? Neat. Hey guys, Zack here, and welcome back to Courage Month. So, this episode is actually interesting. Hey guys, Zack here, and welcome back to Courage Month. So, in this particular segment of the show, we're actually going to be reviewing Night of the Weremole and Mother's Day. Night of the Weremole is interesting because it's kind of a werewolf type story, and in Mother's Day we actually meet Eustace's mother. So yeah, I'm just gonna get into both of those reviews. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so starting with the first review, Night of the Weremole. Night of the Weremole is actually interesting in that well, Muriel is technically the antagonist of it. I'll get to that in a minute. But in any case, it starts off with Courage and Eustace actually watching what is later described as Muriel's favorite show, and they're both asleep. They're both passed out in their respective chairs, while Muriel is out tending to the garden and actually digging up some carrots to bring inside in the middle of the night. And as she's actually digging them up, she actually is approached by a rabbit who she assumes wants a treat. Because the cartoons will dictate, give rabbits like carrots, which is actually very bad for them. Don't give them too many carrots. If you have a rabbit, don't overfeed them on carrots, because carrots are very sugary and they will cause your rabbit to get very sick if they eat too many of them. So yeah, I mean, give them sparingly as a treat like Muriel does in this episode, but don't assume that they actually subsist on a diet of carrots and carrots alone. That is a great way to kill your rabbit if you have one. But in case as she's rummaging around in the basket for a carrot to give to the rabbit, there's actually a large thing burrowing through the dirt. And as Muriel is actually digging through her basket, the rabbit is actually bitten and dragged into the hole. And Muriel is distracted, so she doesn't see where the rabbit went. But all she sees is the hole, and she holds out the carrot, asking the rabbit where it went. At which point she's bit by something called it's described as the episode as a weremole. And sure enough, because of that, she actually gets bitten, and her hand starts to swell up. So Courage and Eustace eventually find out what happened, and they bring her to the family doctor, Dr. Vindaloo. And Dr. Vindaloo is interesting in that he's not a really good doctor. Long story short, he doesn't really give any useful advice. He has a very hard time discerning whether or not something is actually you need to worry about. He always brushes something off as no concern, and his only advice that he gives is to just keep soaking it until it gets better. Which is what he does in this episode. He notices that Muriel's hand is swollen, and tells her to just keep soaking it until the swelling goes down. While Courage is fretting over it, Muriel assures him that she'll be fine, even petting him with the swollen hand. But Eustace just merely remarks that she shouldn't have been bitten in the first place if she thought everything was going to be fine. And then proceeds to drag Courage out of the patient room, and Muriel follows them. And true to Dr. Vindaloo's advice, the soaking it actually does cause the swelling to go down. But then, as Muriel is actually cleaning her hand and actually cleaning the wound, she actually sees a full moon out of the window and starts to feel a little bit dizzy and lightheaded. At which point, Eustace notices that Muriel isn't actually in the room with them, and again, this is her favorite show, so obviously she's going to be very upset if she misses it. Courage is actually sent in to actually go look for her. Only to discover that Muriel has kind of sort of become a rabid animal. Case in point, she's actually clawing down on all fours and is actually eating out of Courage's dog bowl, and is actually just wolfing down all of the food that was in it. And this shocks Courage so much that he actually winds up having a heart attack. And sure enough, he's actually rushed away by paramedics, where he's actually revived by Dr. Vindaloo, who just points out that he almost bit the big one, and wonders what's up with that. And Courage, realizing that Dr. Vindaloo is probably maybe not the best person to diagnose what's going on with Muriel, but rather the most readily available option. Brings him back to the farmhouse and shows him Muriel, pointing out that that's something weird is going on with her. So Dr. Vindaloo proceeds to start diagnosing the patient to actually figure out what's going on. And Muriel initially at first seems like she's completely fine. She's talking normally and is just kind of addressing Dr. Vindaloo and Courage like nothing is wrong. But the second Dr. Vindaloo asks her to open her mouth and say, she reveals that she actually is indeed turning into a weremole, and actually bites Dr. Vindaloo and shakes him around like a rag doll, and then flings him into the corner of the room. And Muriel is at this point is starting to turn into a weremole, and then proceeds to burrow her way into the ground, which startles Courage and causes him to actually go shooting up through the floor and into Eustace's bath while he's bathing. So and Courage tries to explain to Eustace what's going on, but Eustace just kind of brushes him off and then pushes him back through the hole where he came from. And then Muriel follows him seconds later and burrows through the bottom of the bathtub as well, which causes Eustace to realize that there may be some truth to Courage's claims, and proceeds to go downstairs to figure out what's going on. And all they notice that Dr. Vindaloo seems to be in a little phased, but he doesn't seem hurt. And he then proceeds to believe that it's just a case of the chicken pox, but he's then bitten by Muriel again and dragged into the floorboards. At which point Courage tries to explain what's going on, but Eustace doesn't fully understand, or just doesn't seem to care, because all he really states is that seems that rats are actually tearing up his house, and decides to go get his mallet, which is a recurring joke. It actually pays off here, but it's a recurring joke that he always goes off to go get his mallet whenever something bad is happening. Although Courage tries to encourage him not to do that, since obviously it's Muriel. He doesn't want Muriel getting hurt. But Eustace again just doesn't listen and goes up to the bedroom to actually go find his mallet. And he does eventually find it, as I said. But while Eustace is actually doing that, Courage actually goes into the attic and asks the computer for some advice to see if he can actually figure out how to deal with the weremole. And after the computer actually chastises Courage on his lousy typing, Courage scolds him and tells him to get to the point. And the computer then proceeds to explain what a weremole is. That they come out under a full moon, and they have a penchant for attacking both people and rabbits. Case in point, it attacked Muriel while she was trying to feed a rabbit, and now she's a weremole. At which point, Courage asks the computer how to actually deal with a weremole. And the computer just kind of defaults to telling Courage what he already knew, which is that the best way to deal with it is to get a mallet. But then Courage asks the computer again if there's actually a cure for it, because he obviously doesn't want Muriel to get hurt. So the computer then responds that the cure is actually pretty easy, and that all he has to do is bring a hair from the weremole that bit them, and then feed it to them so that they turn back. But the computer then remarks that that's easier said than done, since obviously if the weremole bites you, it's a very big problem, and you could easily turn into a weremole. So and Courage gets a little bit frightened, but decides that it's probably completely 100% fine. And then proceeds to dress himself up as a rabbit to try and lure the weremole towards him so that he can actually get the hair. And it works. The weremole actually burrows it up under Courage, grabs him, and then shakes him around for a bit. And while that's happening, Eustace actually successfully finds his mallet hiding under the bed after accidentally setting off a mousetrap. And around the exact time, he's actually attacked by weremole Muriel, and is trying to and he then proceeds to get into a game of whack-a-mole as he tries to hit the infected Muriel and tries to squish her like the quote-unquote rat she is. And that's what the majority of this episode is, with Courage being shaken about by the weremole a whole bunch. Eustace playing a game of whack-a-mole with Muriel, And it just kind of flashes back and forth between those two scenes for a bit until eventually the werewolf flings Courage free of his costume, and Courage, while the werewolf is distracted with the costume, actually manages to pluck a hair from the werewolf, which the werewolf doesn't seem to notice, and Courage even shrugs that that's a little bit odd, that the werewolf just doesn't seem to care. But he then, with the hair, with now in the possession of the hair, he then proceeds to go up and help Eustace with the werewolf problem. And then, as Muriel is about to close in on Eustace and about to bite him, Courage leaps in through the window and throws the hair into Muriel's mouth, which causes her. She starts to choke on it and then recedes it back into the floor. At which point Eustace scolds Courage because obviously he thought he almost had the rat, as he puts it, But Courage and Eustace then proceed to go pop back downstairs to check to see if Muriel is actually all right, and she is. Now that she's had the cure, she's completely 100% fine. And Courage is now satisfied that everything is back to normal. Then proceeds to cuddle up on Muriel's lap with Eustace merely responding that he wasn't able to actually get the rat after all, and wonders where it actually went to, But then the story actually continues, and Dr. Vindaloo, who, remember, he got bitten, he pops out of the ground, bites Eustace, drags him into the tunnel, and we hear the struggle, but it's heavily implied that Eustace got eaten by Dr. Vindaloo, and Courage panics a little bit and wonders if there's actually a doctor in the house, which is ironic considering there is, but he's part of the problem. So yeah, this episode is just really fun. It's mostly just the visual gag of Courage being tossed around like a ragdoll by the werewolf, and Eustace playing whack-a-mole. That's the majority of this episode, but it is interesting in that Muriel was just in the wrong place at the wrong time, and she wound up becoming an antagonist because of it. So yeah, it's very interesting. It is kind of interesting in that regard, but in any case, that's my review of that. Onward to the next review. Okay, so this episode, Mother's Day, is actually, well, long story short, it's a gold mine because it actually explains a bit about why Eustace might actually be such a bitter old man, and more to the point, why he may or may not antagonize Courage as much as he does. So it starts off with Courage napping in Muriel's rocking chair. And as he's kind of resting a little bit, he overhears an argument between Muriel and Eustace. And long story short, Eustace has to go to his mom's house because it's Mother's Day. And he wants Muriel to come with, but Muriel doesn't want to. And Eustace even points out that he doesn't really want to go by himself. So Muriel volunteers Courage to go, and Courage kind of panics a little bit because he doesn't really favor the idea of being alone with Eustace for a while, much less with the woman who raised him. While Eustace initially denies the idea that he wants to actually go with Courage, he decides that it's better than nothing, and decides to take Courage with him, much to Courage's chagrin. And as Eustace actually puts his leash on him and tries to drag him out the door, Courage actually latches onto Eustace's chair with his teeth and tries to keep himself anchored in the room so that he doesn't have to leave. But in any case, as they're walking out, as they're leaving the door, and going out to go to Eustace's mother's house, Muriel actually hands Eustace a series of gifts and tells him to just be polite, be kind to his mom, and also take his hat off in the house because it's rude to actually wear the hat, and also reminds him to smile. At which point Eustace asks her again if she wants to go, but she merely just keeps completely silent, and Eustace takes that as a no and just leave, and he encourages just leave. So they get into Eustace's truck and are on their way there, and while in the car, Eustace actually kind of devises a bit of a plan to actually get out of having to actually go see his mother. So his plan is to make Courage look like a mad dog and have him attack his ma. Which obviously isn't going to work because obviously Courage is a scaredy cat. He's not going to bite anybody of his own volition unless he absolutely has to. But he's not, unless Muriel or somebody else is being threatened, he's not going to bite anybody. We've established that. He'll only bite somebody if Muriel or Eustace is in danger. So unless that's happening, he's too much of a scary cat to actually do it. But Eustace merely explains that when he gives the signal, which is him scratching his chin, that's the signal for Courage to attack, and even gives Courage a step-by-step instruction on how to actually growl, which only serves to freak Courage out a little bit more. But eventually they arrive at Eustace's mom's house, and which is more so a trailer than a house, but in any case, Eustace's mom actually answers the door, and we actually meet her. At which point, Eustace actually greets his mom and then starts scratching his chin to try and get Courage to do the thing. But Courage doesn't do the thing, so Eustace has to step on his toes a little bit, quite literally, to get him to go leap at his mom. But which Eustace tries to play off as him being attacked. But what we find out instead is that his mom actually doesn't believe doesn't believe that Courage would actually attack her, and also scolds him for trying to make Courage look like the bad guy, and even calls him stupid boy a little bit. So at which point she brings Courage into the house, and Eustace follows, and they actually all sit down at the table and get to eat, get ready to eat. Eustace and Courage are actually sitting down to get ready to eat. Courage actually reminds Eustace to take his hat off in the house since again it's rude. So Eustace does that, but she merely scolds him again, telling him to put his hat back on because he looks like a cue ball. At which point she offers Courage some food and leaves to go make some. At which point she just tells Courage to make himself comfortable, but Eustace isn't particularly happy about the fact that Courage is sitting at the table and tells him to get down from the table, which Courage immediately does because he's a little scared, because again, he's scared of Eustace and doesn't want him getting angry at him for no apparent reason. But his mom comes back and asks Courage to come sit at the table so that he can actually go eat. Which annoys Eustace because obviously Courage is kind of going against the direct order. But as a kind of a consolation prize, he offers Eustace the cherry from his meal and tells him that he can have it. But Eustace just swats away. At which point Ma Bag decides to actually belittle Eustace again, pointing out that that's clear why Courage is offering him the cherry, and that she complains about Eustace being too skinny, and that if he actually bothered to visit, which she doesn't really, then she would actually bother to feed him and actually make sure he actually grows to be big and strong. At which point Eustace points out that what if he did, that she still wouldn't feed him. At which point she asks if he would like her to, and he kind of just mumbles a little bit to himself that yeah, he would be happy with that. But so she leaves to go get him some food, and once again he yells at Courage to get down from the table. So Courage actually gets off the table chair and does exactly what he's told. At which point Ma actually comes back with two lousy pieces of bacon. Very, very skinny pieces of bacon, might I add. They're barely a piece of bacon at all. They're like the little pieces that would break off the end of the piece of bacon. That is what she gave Eustace for food. At which point as he's eating, she starts scolding him again, criticizing his posture, criticizing him eating too fast, and a whole bunch of other things. And eventually Eustace kind of gets sick of it and tells her to knock it off. At which point she kind of retorts back, wondering pointing out that he should be listening to her instructions, since all she's trying to do is look out for him and make sure he isn't trying to overeat. But in case once everybody is eaten, Ma actually picks up Courage and brings him into the other room to get ready to visit. And as they're going into the other room to have a sit down to visit, Courage actually reminds Eustace that he brought gifts. And actually asks him to go prepare the gifts and bring them to his ma, to hopefully ease the tension between the two of them. And so Eustace grabs the gifts and brings them to his mom. The first gift is flowers, which is revealed to be allergic to, and tells him that he should have brought hypoallergenic flowers. The second gift is chocolates, which she doesn't like, which she admits she doesn't like, and then gives them to Courage, which, again, going off of the previous review, don't give speaking of things that will kill your pets if you give them too much of them, don't feed your dog chocolates, like, at all. It's a cartoon, so Courage winds up being okay, if a little bit sick, but don't do that. It actually causes your dog's kidneys to shut down. Don't give them chocolates, like, ever. Like, do not feed them chocolates. I mean, and it is proportional to the size of the dog, so Courage should be dead right now. He should be. He should have died in this episode. That is it. That would have been the end of Courage the Cowardly Dog if this wasn't indeed a cartoon and he was allowed to eat chocolates. But he's a cartoon dog in a cartoon world, so he's allowed to eat chocolates, so he's fine. But don't give your dog chocolates. But in any case, the third and final gift is a mirror, which winds up being a hit because apparently Muse's mom loves making herself look good and actually asks him to hold the mirror for her so that she can actually take a picture and starts grooming herself to make sure she looks the best she can, including her sitting in a tanning bed for quite a bit. But eventually she asks Eustace to take the picture, and it's of her and Courage, which annoys him greatly, but he takes the picture anyway. At which point she admits that she actually has a gift for Courage, and then proceeds to leave to actually go and get it. And while she's gone, Eustace actually scolds Courage a little bit, and then gives Courage the camera and asks him to take a picture of the two of them when his mom gets back. But Courage keeps fumbling with the clicker on the camera, so he winds up taking way more pictures than necessary and actually winds up blinding the two of them. At which point Eustace takes it out on Courage and starts strangling him when his mom comes back and scolds Eustace to pick on somebody his own size. And then proceeds to give Courage a teddy bear, which is revealed to be Eustace's. She re-gifts his teddy bear to Courage like a bitch. So yeah, she gives away Eustace's teddy bear to Courage, and Eustace eventually has enough and kind of whines like a child a little bit, complaining about how she never actually gives him any gifts, and that it's not fair that she spoils Courage so much. At which point she decides, you know what, she will give Eustace a gift, and it's revealed that she has the exact same mask that Eustace has, and actually uses it to scare him, much like he uses his to scare Courage. And then complains about, and then when he jumps out of his skin, she then proceeds to point out that how he's such a coward and such a baby boy, and points out that he's not a real man, and that she would never be, and that his dad was actually twice the man he'll ever be, and that he could never fill his shoes, quite literally, because they're quite massive. At which point Eustace decides that he's had enough, and that if he can actually beat his mom, and decides that challenges his mom to a wrestling match, deciding that if he can actually beat her in an arm wrestling match, that he will actually have proved himself a man. And with that, the two of them then proceed to start arm wrestling, but it quickly becomes apparent that Eustace is completely outmatched by his mother. So he scratches his chin to try and get Courage's attention and get him to do something, and pointing out that if he loses, that Courage will lose as well, which implies that if he doesn't win this challenge, that Courage is in deep shit. So Courage decides to go pick up the flowers that Malbec actually threw away, and then proceeds to hold them to Ma's face, which causes her to sneeze, and then her hair falls off and it's revealed that she's bald. And she actually starts stopping, pointing out that she's bald and hideous, and Eustace, after scolding Courage for making his mom cry, then proceeds to comfort his mom, pointing out that she looks fine and that she's not all that ugly, since she looks okay to him, and he takes off his hat, since obviously they're both bald, and it's implied that this might be where he gets his bald head from. And she points out that actually does make her look better, feel better, but then she points out that he's still the ugliest son she's ever seen, which causes the both of them to laugh, and they two embrace and presumably make up. At which point, shortly after, they proceed to drive back home to the back farm, and when they come in, Muriel asks them how it went, and Eustace points out that it went well and that he'll have to visit them soon, but he's being very, very sarcastic. At which point Muriel asks what exactly they did, and Courage just pulls out a photo that they took, which is of the two of them cuddling up to Courage while he's wearing Ma Bag's wig, and he's completely terrified, and she points out that it's a lovely picture. So yeah, let's just unpack this episode a little bit. So this episode heavily implies that the reason Eustace is actually as the bitter old man we know and tolerate is because he was a victim of psychological abuse from his mother. He was basically abused as a child, if we're being honest. Because like based on this episode, she barely feeds him. She tormented him with a mask which he presumably got from her. And on top of that, she constantly belittles him and calls him stupid boy. So it's heavily implied that he's imprinting all of that onto Courage. So, because Courage is basically his quote-unquote son. So it's implied. So yeah, this episode heavily implies that Eustace wound up becoming a bitter old man because his mom basically neglected and abused him. So he wound up being warped and twisted into the bitter old man we know now. So, which is interesting. That is so. Yeah, I kind of feel bad for Eustace a little bit now. It's like, yeah, he's mean to Courage, but his mom kind of started that. His mom kind of turned him into the abusive old man we know now. So yeah, just unpacking this episode, it's implied. That's just it. Eustace Bag is a victim of parental abuse. What more do you want me to say about that? What more do you want me to say about that? Eustace is a victim of parental abuse. There's nothing else I can say about that. But in any case, yeah, that's gonna do it for today's reviews. And thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, be sure to follow me on Twitter in the description below. If you want to keep up to date with what's going on the channel, then Twitter's the best way to do that. Also, be sure to check out my Patreon if you want to help support me. Obviously, this is a big project, and I want you guys to help support me. But if you want to see future projects like this, then by all means, just go down and support me down with my Patreon down in the description below. It helps me out, and you guys get access to a bunch of cool perks. I'm always saying thanks. So yeah, go check that out down in the description. And finally, if you want to see more content from me, then be sure to check out the videos linked in the end screen. The top video is the most recent video. It may or may not be this one, and it may or may not be Courage related. Whereas the bottom video is a video recommended to you based on what you've already seen from me. And again, it may or may not be Courage related. But and also be sure to check out my Twitch because we're actually going to be streaming horror games all month. I actually did wind up streaming Tattletale. I've never actually played it, so if you guys want to see my reaction to that, the VOD will actually be in this playlist as well as the usual playlist where those things would go. So if you guys want to absolutely see that, by all means, go check that out. But in any case, yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace!